Importance of networking. I would just try to define it in one sentence. That sentence, in its plain reading, is your network is your network.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today it is an honor and a pleasure for me to introduce you all to this very particular session where we are going to know more about the myths and the realities of working in public sector as well as private sector. My name is Harsh and I'm going to moderate this session for all of you wherein I'm going to introduce you all about session and perhaps the person who is going to interact and address all of us. First of all, I request you all to kindly acknowledge and welcome the presence of our esteemed guest, Mr. Naveen Juneja sir, who is here with us. I would like to request all the persons those who are watching this session on YouTube to kindly upload in the comment section and welcome the presence of our esteemed guest. Our guest, Mr. Naveen Juneja sir, during more than 28 year of professional journey, has handled a number of critical assignments in the government of India and in private domain. He was one of the first few in public sector to move to private sector on the break from GOI, where the government allowed senior official to serve in private sector, starting his career from the Ministry of Food in early 90s, where he contributed towards strengthening of food policy administration. Mr. Juneja moved to the Employees Provident Fund Organization, the frontline agency of the Government of India for extending social security and old age pension benefit to the working class. Apart from regular field level assignment, which included quasi-judicial work relating to social security management of the government scheme, he has handled various critically policy formulation assignments. Thus, in his capacity as a regional PF Commissioner, International Worker Unit as EPFO, he was instrumental in handling negotiations in India and across the world, which led to securing the reciprocal social security benefits for Indians and working across the world and to foreigners working in India. Subsequently, which acting as a regional PF Commissioner, HRD has been a part of team with which scripted HR policies for the EPFO's workforce. Presently, he is a part of Information Service Division where he handled IT information policy and procurement of related hardware and solution for the organization. In between, he worked as a founding director of the Career Services and Corporate Relation of the Lovely Professional University, the largest single campus private university in the country. So, first of all, sir, I welcome you to in this session. Thank you so much for joining and agreeing to share your thoughts with us.
Hello, Harsh, and hello, everybody. I'm actually pleasantly surprised at being invited by a student body because I believe that you can contribute to students' enrichment of knowledge and their horizons at any point in life. Thank you.
Sir, it's an absolute pleasure for all of us. Thank you so much for joining. So, moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is the myths and the realities of working in the public sector versus private sector. Despite of the fact government job is like finding a needle in the haystack, still there is a huge demand for government jobs. There are several myths about government jobs which are responsible for this cause. As you have tasted the flavor of both the sectors, preceding years working in the private sector with a great educational institution of this country, and then in the public sector. So in this interview, I'm initially going to quote few statements, and you have to means answer whether it is a myth or a reality, and why you think so. So, sir, my first point is 9 to 5 job in public sector. Is it a myth or a reality?
Well, uh, your first question is a bouncer, and it will help me break so many myths in the subsequent minutes as well. 9 to 5, yes, we are guided by a timing for the office just to ensure that there is a discipline. But to say that things happen only at between 9 to 5 and beyond that, it's a rosy life for we people. It's a big myth. I mean, never was this statement true that you come to office in time, you leave office in time, and you can be away in the meantime. No, it has never been like that. government, and for that matter, every public service in this country or across the world has to function 24 by 7. 9 to 5 is a kind of the boundaries that we set for ourselves to ensure that people are visible. But then for people to be visible, there are an equal number of functions which happen behind the scenes and which happen round the clock. And then government, unlike private sector mostly, I wouldn't discount the private sector totally, but government, unlike private sector, has to rise up to occasions of national calamities or wherever their inputs are required or their presence is required. And when that happens, there's nothing like 9 to 5. It is in fact 24 by 7. I'll give you an example. At this moment, we are going through a big global calamity in the form of this COVID. Right. So when COVID happened, everything went in for a toss. All those principles of working, I mean, there was nothing like a case study for this. So no one knew what would happen. And then there were people who were suffering. There were people who had lost their jobs. There were people who had suddenly gone short of cash at home or to bring food for their family. So what happened? Government came up with a scheme. I mean, my department came up with a scheme to help the working class with a special advance to tide over the COVID times, right? So imagine, Harsh, what happened. I mean, if it were to be a 9 to 5 kind of assignment, then we would have been happy to leave office at 5. But then there were times when there was a total lockdown. People were not moving out of their houses. Even though we were not an essential service, we rose up to the occasion. We sought special permissions to be at our office. We settled claims which were at phenomenal speed and at a speed which was X times or N times more than the normal things, right? So why I'm giving you this particular example is to drive home the point that there is nothing like a 9 to 5 kind of job. 9 to 5 is only a mental boundary which exists in the minds of us all, and more so in the minds of the general public when it comes to thinking about the government service. But no, it's a pure myth.
Indeed, sir. Sir, second point which I have got is competition is more in public sector rather than in private sector.
Well, competition is more in public sector, yes. This is not to say that private sector is not a sought after job or a career. When you say public sector, competition is more because as of now, the popular image of the government service or the public sector is that it will bring you stability. It will add to your family status. It will give feathers to your life. So many things. Yes. So for every government job, lakhs are appearing, and competition at the same time looks more because there are few services or few career options in governments where everyone wants to be. I mean, if you believe that you got some gray matter, or if you believe that you want to contribute to the public cause as a whole, then people look up to government service. So for exams like civil services and few other exams in the government, yes, competition is always there. It will always be there in bigger proportions than public sector. Even though, I mean, private sector may be a better contributor to the employment, but yes, government will remain the most attracting proposition for anyone who wants to prove his worth like that.
Indeed, sir. Third point which I have got is that higher pay and benefits in public sector over private. Is it a myth or a reality?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. If you look at it only from the point of view of compensation is only, then I would say that it's a myth. The compensation, when I say compensation, it means the cash that you're carrying home at the end of the month or week or whatever manner you are paid. Because as your service length grows, the compensation in government is very linear, in the sense that it's a very structured kind of job. You get fixed kind of increments every year. nothing by way of a big bounty. There are no employee stock options, no ESOPs in government. Your daily ESOP is the satisfaction that you did something for the cause. But yes, we don't have CEOs kind of salaries. Even the topmost bureaucrat in the country will be earning a fraction of what any CEO would be earning elsewhere in the country. That too, come to think of it, the topmost bureaucrat in the country is the senior most bureaucrat in the country who has reached that position after putting in like something like 33 years of service. So he is not earning. He is not earning in crores. He's not even earning 1 crore as a gross salary. So and when it comes to comparison, I guess that statement explains it all, because you can find CEOs in corporate sectors who are earning in multiples of crores and in hundreds of crores as well. Yeah.
Indeed, sir. Sir, third one which I have got is that permanent hiring in public sector over private. Is it true?
Well, to some extent, I will go with your statement. It is true, in the sense that in public domain, when you are entering a public service, whether it was a conscious decision or you ended up being a public servant, first thing that hits you, that attracts you, is the stability that it brings to you. Not in terms of movement or dislocation. You are still subject to transfers, etc. in many jobs, but stability in terms of assurance of a salary at the end of the month. So that assurance itself for a developing country like ours is reason enough for people to remain stable in the jobs. So that is why you don't see many people leaving jobs or experimenting with different jobs once they are into a government job. They may be shifting from one government job to another, given the choice, or maybe if they still have time to take few more competitive exams within the government domain. But then you don't see too many people hopping out of jobs. Yes, there are instances when people would jump over to corporate sector or some other startups kind of thing, but then instances are not too many to become an example. One. Secondly, stability also means that once you are into the thick and thin of the job, you come to like the challenges that are coming your way, because government is one entity where they are working for the larger cause. They are not working for the profits. So, and the challenges that come along. I mean, you are dealing with all organs of the government apart from public. So you are dealing with legislature, you are dealing with politicians, you are dealing with public, you are also dealing with judiciary. So that gives you a you can say hand which makes you believe that yes, this is one career that I want to be in. So that is why yes, I agree with you that it brings more stability.
And also, sir, one point which I have got is that no firing in public sector. It is believed that if you got a public sector job, then you are permanent employee. Is it true, sir?
See, I'll reframe your question. I mean, yes, this question is actually an extension of your last one. Stability also means that in government sector, since your productivity is not directly linked to a profit and loss kind of equation, you are not subject to firing in ordinary circumstances because of productivity. But that is not to say that we are not productivity conscious. Firings do happen, people are shown the door, but then those instances will be too few to become an example. One. Secondly, there may not be firing, but we are subject to greater scrutiny. We are subject to greater scrutiny for everything that we do on files, off the files, that we do or even our family members do. So, which also means that though you don't stand the risk of firing as much as you would do if you were in a private sector, but still the fact that you are answerable to different organs of the government is something which keeps you driving and working.
Indeed, sir. Last second point which I have got is that only white-haired people opinion matter in public sector. Is it true, sir?
See, you have posed an interesting question, right? When you say that only white-haired opinion matters, let's take it this way: that most of the policy decision makers in the government would be those who have attained certain level of seniority, right? So in the process, yes, their hair may have gone gray, right? But let's take it this way: if you were to look at it only from the perspective of the challenge that the job brings to you. See, the challenges or the better days of civil service, or for that matter, every service in the day, are early years of your service. I would say, when your hair are still not gray, I mean, let's say first 10 years to 12 years, you go to any district, people would say that he is district magistrate, or he is collector, or he is deputy commissioner, depending on which state you are in. So those are the things where the action lies, real adrenaline lies. As your seniority grows, you move away from field. You are confined to the corridors of the powers. You are confined to secretariat of different departments. So where instead of field action, what happens is the policy scripting, the policy formulation. They are the brains, the think tanks of the government. So yes, people who end up taking larger decisions for the larger cause of the country, they are indeed those whose hair have actually turned gray because of the experience that they have put in, and justifiably so. But then yes, gray hair do matter. I'll tell you why. I know of gray hair do matter even in a corporate scenario. I know of a CEO of a very big IT giant in the world, in fact, amongst the top 5. So he was one of the youngest to become CEO, about when he was 40. So whenever he would travel to US or to any other country, people wouldn't take him seriously because he looked so young. So just to bring an element of seriousness to his outward appearance, he used to dye his hair white. Can you imagine? So white hair do matter. White hair do matter because they, if not anything, they reflect that what you're saying should be attached some gravity. You have, what you're saying is a statement which is coming out of years of accumulated experience. So it applies both to public sector as well as to private sector.
All right, sir. Last point which I have got is that public sector is slow to evolve in comparison to private sector. Is it true?
See, if you look at the very structure of the public sector, the government as a whole is essentially working for the people. So even if it wants to change, a decision has to come out of a due thought process. It has to go through different levels of journeying. It has to undergo different levels of brainstorming, not just different levels within the same hierarchy. It has to actually go laterally to different hierarchies. Say, if I want to have some change in the way we operate at EPFO, at Employees Provident Fund Organization, then saying that will not be enough. For me, there has to be a great substance to support my reasoning. It cannot just come out as a figment of someone's imagination or whims. So one, it has to be a calibrated decision. Then that decision has to be debated internally. Then that decision has to be seen from many angles. By, say, if I want to make some change, if say 10 years or 15 years back or 20 years back, I wanted that all my stakeholders, when they are applying for their provident fund benefits, they should have money reaching to them electronically. Then mind thinking that would have been a simple decision, but I have to go to my bankers to see if my bankers were ready for that or not. Then I have also to go to our Ministry of Law also to see whether I am within the four corners of all legal principles of banking or money exchange or not. Whether I am not flouting anything unintentionally. So for government to take decision in the larger interest of the public at large, decisions have to be well thought, well debated. Only then they will reach the state of legislature. Because everything that happens at core level in the government has to have some legislative changes, has to have some statutory changes in the statute. So before that happens, there is a due thought process. Yes, that drags down the speed, but then that is not to say we do not know how to act with speed. We do act with speed. We have instances where laws were evolved pretty quickly, where decisions were taken in I wouldn't say haste, but decisions were taken in with lightning speed, and they are the decisions which still hold good, right? Yes.
Indeed, sir. I think you have very beautifully explained all the points, have given a very proper reason and told the reasons to believe or not, what are the actual things and what are the myths around it. Sir, what we have seen is that when the world was suffering from a deadly pandemic, India plans to convert this crisis into an opportunity by becoming self-reliant or Atmanirbhar. And our government has identified the need and emergency of the entrepreneurship. In fact, in our budget 2021, we have seen our finance minister announce that government have no business to be in the business. So we have seen that government is focusing on the entrepreneurship. We have seen how Indian pharmaceutical firm provided the vaccine in so much little spam, how they have worked really very hard, and how India became the coronavirus vaccine hub. Sir, my next question to you is, any career path requires training, whether you are an accountant, an office manager, or an airline pilot. Becoming an entrepreneur is no different. The skill required to be good at entrepreneurship are not exclusive. They can be applied to almost any field of work. So, do you support the idea of entrepreneurial teaching as a part of higher education?
Uh, Before I give you a direct answer to your question, I'll just try to draw a historical perspective. Government has no business to be in business is a very deep and profound statement coming from our honorable finance minister. See, the context in which government got into so many businesses in which it had no business to be to begin with has to do with some historical realities. I mean, when we got our independence, there was hardly any industrialization. So there were sectors, there were social sectors where government had to intervene. I mean, there was a time when government was even making bread, right? But yes, that is not to say that we are anachronistic. We were in sync with those times. We are in sync with these times. That is why the statement of finance minister that we have no business to be in business is no longer anachronistic. It is a contemporary statement because our country has now and in recent past moved away from those sectors where core attention of the government or direct intervention of the government was required. So infrastructure is in good shape. Infrastructure growth is happening very fast. Our social fundamentals have improved. Our economy is now very robust, despite the hits of pandemic, despite the hiccups that we see often. So we are moving. I mean, government is consciously moving away from managing businesses. Rather, now the tone is and the policy stress is on creating environment conducive for businesses, right? Things like ease of doing business, they are not just statements. They're not just, a statement to make political points or whatever. This has been happening over the years because we recognize the fact that creating right grounds or right fertile grounds for businesses is key to ours becoming an economic superpower. Which I mean, the world talks of India becoming an economic superpower very in near future. But how will it happen is one of the ingredients is creating the right material, right ground, right ingredients, putting things in place. So one of the things, apart from creating ease of doing business for big businesses and all those things that we are doing to invite people from other countries and investing into our country, The other factor is how strong the government is in its commitment towards entrepreneurship. See, entrepreneurship and startups, they are the ones which are actually going to set the momentum for the coming decade. The 20s in India, the 30s in India will be a direct function of how we spent our 20s in settling up an entrepreneurial setup in the country. How keen government was in promoting the entrepreneurial setups, how proactive the government was. I would give an example of one of the students of LPU only, Bebin Babu. He was a bright student who wanted to be on his own, is now running 4 and 5 startups, even appeared on the cover story of India Today. So why I'm giving you a specific example is that entrepreneurship is the way up. Not everyone has liquidity or parental wealth to start a new business, but not everyone is short of ideas, right? So entrepreneurs have ideas. All that a government or a conscious government needs to do is to help him steer through with his ideas, giving shape to dreams is what government is there for.
Indeed, sir. My next question to you is choosing a career is one of the most important decisions you will make in life. It's about so much more than deciding what you will do to make a living. Sir, in your opinion, what are those crucial things what one should consider while choosing a career?
See, Harsh, my take on this is that we need to understand how a career is different from a job, right? A job is something which is giving you money at the end of the day. A salary at the end of the month is what a job is all about, but even a career is doing like that. What a career is doing apart from being in a job is that it aligns with something that you grew up with. It aligns with your passion. It aligns with how you visualize yourself growing, say 5 years from now or into a 10 years time window, or how would you want to be in your sunset years. So a career has got a structural roadmap to it. You enter into a job, you ask your employer, what are my career options? How am I going to grow? My organization is growing, but am I growing? So these are the things which are key to a career. Now, what are the basic components of a career? And here again, I will try to create some perspective between a career in a public service or a career in a private service, because I have seen both of these, right? So a career has got 3 components. One is the role, the second is the brand, and third is the compensation package, right? So a role is something which you have grown up with. I mean, you may have, even as a child, you may have dreamed of say flying an aircraft. So if you end up being a pilot, if you end up being an aeronautical engineer, so that would be one role you would be naturally cut out for, because that is what your dreams are made up of. That is what you have grown up with. So if you end up in a role which is what your dreams are made up of, then you would always have a satisfying career, right? Secondly, if you start your career with a good brand, then you have achieved a lot of it in your first go itself. You have suddenly added gravity to your resume. Say if you start your career with an IT giant like Microsoft, Google, or a product company kind of thing, then when you want to have a change of job, say 5 years down the line, then no one is going to ask you for any other questions, any other technical questions, right? All that they would know for sure is that if you have survived in a company like Microsoft for 4 years, that means you have got some stuff in you. You're not an empty or a hollow kind of thing. So because to last for any good length of time in a good company is something which will not happen out of fluke. So you were something. So all that they're going to ask you for is for a change of job is what kind of compensation you are looking for, right? So that brings us to the third question: compensation package. Unfortunately for our students, they are interested in package only from day one. In a country like India, or for that matter, even developed countries, most of the students getting two out of these three things, role, brand, and package, is something which would happen by divine luck. Getting all three will be practically next to impossible, but yes, things do happen. But then defining or trying to pitch your career only by compensation will not land you in good jobs. Certainly, if you are looking for good compensation, then public sector is not the place where you should be looking for a career, because in terms of compensation, you will not be getting what corporates are getting. But if you are looking for role-driven kind of thing, then depending on what is your next priority, if your next priority is brand, or whether your next priority is package, you could either be in a good government job or you could be in private job. So you have to first ask yourself. I mean, it's a tough question. Asking yourself, what is it that you want out of yourself? If you know what you want out of yourself, then you would know what is it that would appeal to you and that would bring you deeper satisfaction, not just your ability to have deep pockets. So first is ask yourself, go back to your own inner drawing board. What are the things that you want out of yourself? So once you have them on table, then that will help you determine what is it that you want to be.
Indeed, sir. I think you have given a very detailed answer, and I think the viewers, those who are watching this session, they are surely going to find us insightful. Not only I think, but I do strongly believe this, sir. And sir, at the same time, I can say there is a lot more to learn from you. But today, I don't want to take up your much time. So moving to my last question of this session, this question is, sir, what we have seen in good colleges, we have seen the culture of student organizations, societies, which operate similar to the corporate organization. Student organization offer experience that can be had in a classroom, that cannot be had in a classroom environment, and offer the opportunity to grow both personally and professionally. Student organization also give you the opportunity to network within a specific employer market with other students of similar interest. So my question to you is, how do you define the importance of networking in both professional and personal life?
See, the importance of networking, I would just try to define it in one sentence. That sentence in its plain reading is, your network is your net worth, right? Your network is your net worth. Actually, when you are trying to do things in life, you will reach a stage when you got good ideas, when you got very fertile ideas, your ideas are workable, but you do not know what next kind of thing. So the questions about who to talk to, who would be the right person, if my business needs this kind of class one investing, then should I go to angel investors? So where would I find angel investors, or should I go to a corporate investor kind of thing? So then if I want to have my company registered, then have I built a network within which someone could suggest how to go about having a company registered with the company affairs, or with, say, provident fund, or having an electric connection? Because even getting an electric connection, a commercial electric connection, can be a nightmare. So if you have consciously built your network, and a network is not a one-way traffic. A network is not a one-way traffic. When I say consciously build, then you have to be good to others. You have to be of some value to others, so that when your time comes, you can extract something good out of them. So you have to be in a position to share what you know, and you have to keep nurturing your network. See, just as they say, you cannot dig well just when you are thirsty. Right? So you know that eventually you will have the thirst of growing up, you will have the hunger of giving shape to your business. So you have to actually keep the ground ready. I mean, as a farmer would do, He would first plow the field, he would de-weed the remnants of the last crop, and he would keep his water resources ready, seeds ready, etc., before eventually the crop is ready to be sown. Right? So, network is very essential. Working on your networks, keeping alive your network, and keeping track of the growth trajectory of friends and people around you is very important. I mean, if you call someone, if you know someone, say, who can help you in say in getting some investments, but then say you end up calling him after 2 years. I mean, your last call was 2 years back, so you end up calling after 2 years and come straight to the topic. It would look too selfish. So networks, if you want to leverage them, they have to be kept alive, which is a very tough task, because you have to have intellectual presence, you have to have a regular input and acknowledgement of their career growth also. I mean, if someone got promoted and you failed to congratulate him, and after 2 years suddenly you want your work to be given seriousness when you are making an impulsive call after 2 years, it is not going to happen. So yes, networks. I totally subscribe to you that networking is absolutely essential to success in all domains.
Indeed, sir, you have told many important points, and one which I like the most is that your network is your net worth. I think the people, those who are watching this session, they are surely going to find this insightful. And I must say, sir, thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. It's a kind of privilege today we got to hear all those things from you. Thank you so much, sir, for joining and giving your important time. It was a very healthy discussion with you on the topic.
I enjoyed every moment of it, Harsh.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Sir. Same here. Thank you.
On the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside, I'm alone, I'm alright. It's so cold outside, I'm alone.